I have one request, Dan.
Yes, sir.
At the end, do you mind getting Brownie and I shaking hands at the end?
By all means.
Okay. I'd like to do that.
I might even kiss him.
Wait a minute. I mean,
You might object to that.
You're good.
That glass is not in there, so do you?
Oh, it's fine. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just don't have any straws or stirs in it, so we're all right.
You're good. If you want, here's the book. I pulled it up, page for it, and here's from Emeru.
Emeru, yeah. There, all the way to Emeru.
And what is that book we're looking at?
It's a war diary, isn't it? Yeah, it's classified. Was overseas.
So there's what record of?
That's the record of the squadron. Every round there. This tells you everything back all the way through here. Every place you see in yellow, I marked myself because that's where I was mentioning it there.
Okay, good to go.
Okay. So, Brownie, we were talking about your initial impressions of flying in combat. You'd said earlier that you were looking forward to going into combat. What were your initial impressions once you got started?
Well, I didn't think it was any different than anything else. You had a mission that you're supposed to accomplish, and whether it was bombing, that's principally what we did, was bombing and strafing. And anytime you could see enemy troops on the ground, I think that you would go in and strafe that. And I used to like to get in there good and close and chop the tops out of the trees to get my last bullet in the target if I could. And my second section leader used to holler at me all the time, pull up, you know, hit the trees. But it wasn't like I wanted to be overseas. I was hoping to get in aerial combat, and I was disappointed actually. And I'm sure people all over the service were disappointed in some way or other that they didn't do what they thought they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I did what I did. I did what I was ordered to do, and I don't think I could have been asked to do any more.
What about the first time you realized you were being shot at?
A lot of times you were being shot at, you didn't even know it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Unless you got a hit.
But what about when you did notice it?
Well, I didn't even think about it then.
Mm-hmm.
You were so busy concentrating on doing what you were supposed to do that you didn't think about being hit. I didn't think I'd ever be hit.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to get out scot-free. But it was like a big game.
Well, prior to March 4th, and we'll get to March 4th in a moment, were there any missions that stand out as ones that you say, this is a special mission, this is something I remember?
Well, I thought, our first mission over to Yap Airfield, to bomb Yap Airfield, because my division leader was shot down on that one. And when I got back to Pelleru, the commanding officer called me into the office and told me he was giving me the division lead for that division. And I held that from the time then until I was shot down.
And division is 4 planes?
4 planes, 2 sections.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 4 divisions in a squadron, full squadron strength. And on the mission I was shot down on, there was 3 full squadrons,
mm-hmm.
48 planes on those strikes.
Okay, so the what do you know about the mission of March 4th before you went? I mean, what had you been told was going to happen that day?
Well, it wasn't a whole lot different than anything else. We'd been bombing and strafing all of the same places up there, but this was going to be a concentrated attempt to knock out the anti-aircraft and stuff up there because they'd been knocking some of our planes down, and we were going to go up there and try to stop some of that and to really do damage to the Japanese anti-aircraft installation.
But it was unusual for all 3 squadrons to fly at one time, wasn't it?
That's the first time we had had a 3-squadron strike. Yeah.
Mhm. And so tell us about what were there any special activities the night before?
I don't think we knew much about it the night before. We knew that morning we were going on it. And it didn't really dawn on us exactly what they had in mind till we got in the radio room there. And I was told what our target was going to be. There was 3 major targets that we were going for. And I was scheduled on the 8 o'clock strike and then again on the 12 o'clock strike. And I had been over to another island where my younger brother was the week before. And I just gotten back, and it was my time for rotation into Australia for rest leave. And the fellows who were in there then couldn't get a ride back to Peleliu. They went into Lady and came back that way, and as a result I was scheduled on this hop and didn't get to go on the rest leave. But anyhow, it was just another hop for where I was concerned there. We were gonna do some damage to the Japanese, and that's what we'd been doing the whole time we were there. On this particular hop, there was 4 hops scheduled, 1 at 8, 1 at 10, and 1 at 12, and 1 at 1400. Mm-hmm. And so I was scheduled on the board for the 8 o'clock hop and the 12 o'clock hop.
So tell us about that. Take us through the mission.
On the 8 o'clock hop, we were loaded with depth charges. That's what you generally hear of on a submarine. There's a concussion bomb with daisy cutter heads. And learned later that the reason for that was that we could drop 500-pound or 1,000-pound high explosive bombs there, and all it would really do would be blow a hole in the ground and a lot of debris go around, but it wasn't doing much damage to the enemy. So they put these depth charges in, which were concussion bombs, and the purpose of that, and to have it explode above the ground, was that the heavy concussion would brain damage them, and that was the only way they could do anything really productive. And we came in without any problem, dropped our bombs, and went out and joined up and went back to the field. And when we got back there, we found out that the commanding officer of VMF-121 was when it was
Cowboy Stout.
Cowboy Stout, and then see, it was his plane was missing. They didn't know when it was hit. No one, even in his squadron, could tell that he was hit and went down. So they didn't really have any information on that. And the other squadron, they were bombing over across the waterway over on Babelthorpe, and Babelthorpe was the main island in the Pole Islands. And so we went back. I didn't go on the 10 o'clock hop. I was rescheduled on the 12 o'clock hop. And our job that day was to take that target that VMF-122 Cowboy Stout Squadron had. I don't know what their target was the next time, but our target was that mess of anti-aircraft, and it was the worst anti-aircraft we'd experienced since we'd been over there.
Was this Battery Hill?
Battery Hill, yes. Mm-hmm. And it was, they had high explosive, what's called HE, and white phosphorus shell just streak out across the sky, and it looks like they're reaching out for you. And Major Meyer took us out to sea all the ways there, and we climbed up 20,000 feet and come diving in to get a good speed to get in there on and be there right at the time we're supposed to hit the target. And I was leading the 2nd Division into the run, and as the 1st Division was going down, the whole top of the mountain just almost looked like a big cauldron there. It was so much anti-aircraft, and the white phosphorus shells were streaking across the sky and just reaching out for you. And I came up my turn. I dived in, and we came into the target somewhere around 400 knots, and then of course we had to throttle back. And as I was diving on the target, I had my gun sight right on the center of the target, but in changing my throttle and things settings there to slow down a little bit, I changed the attitude of the plane, and I glanced in the cockpit real quickly to check my needle ball and airspeed, and to be sure that I wasn't in a skid, because if you're in a skid coming down, your gun sight's pointing over here and your bomb's going to land over here. Mm-hmm. So you have to be sure that that thing is centered. And I did it centered. As I glanced back up, I took a quick look at the altitude. It was 8,500 feet. And just as I looked back into my gun sight there, I had a tremendous explosion in the bottom of the cockpit. And I looked down at my lap, and I could see the blood all over everything down there. And the plane, the cockpit was on fire because the shell that came in there, and this was where the seat armor plate that the fellows had put in back over in Espiritu Santos really paid off, because the shrapnel didn't come up through and hit me there. And one big piece of shrapnel came up and cut a big slash out of my inside of my thigh on my left leg, and it set the cockpit on fire because of the gasoline spilling out in there in the bottom of the cockpit from the ruptured fuel pump.
And the fuel pump was right below you.
Right on the bottom of the cockpit, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the flames were boiling up, and I knew I had to get out pretty fast, so I was being burned. I had burns all up. Even though I had long gauntlet gloves, long sleeves, long trousers, and boondocker shoes, and oxygen mask, goggles and everything, I was being burned around the neck good, and both arms and up my legs. And I knew I had to get out fast, or I was going to be charred, and therefore I could get out. So I pulled my nose up and swung around about 180 degrees. And when I got around there, I flipped my canopy off. And when I did, the draft brought the flames up in my face even worse. And I couldn't use my left leg because of the shrapnel wound in it. And so I had to grab up on the top of the windshield and chin myself up to get my right foot in the seat of the cockpit, and dived over the port side of the cockpit. And going at the speed I was going, when I hit that slipstream, it spun me around, and my left leg was thrown up under the instrument panel, and my foot hung on something in there, and I blew from. You ready?
Wait till that's. Position him. So
I knew my leg was hung in the cockpit, and I was blowing alongside the cockpit, just banging and banging and banging and banging. And going that speed, my goggles blew off, my oxygen mask blew off, my helmet blew away, and my jungle pack on top of the parachute. And the parachute had a cushion up here, and then it had a jungle pack here, and then it had a seat raft on that, and that was all on top of the chute. And as that stuff blew away, it left my parachute harness real loose. And soon my leg broke, the fibula in the left leg broke, and that's what freed me from the plane. And as I started going by the empennage, I reached down and I found my ripcord down there, and I grabbed that thing, and I must have thrown it all the way back to Peleliu. And that parachute opened to sound like a 155 going off within 50 feet of you there. It was the biggest bang I ever heard. And my first thought was, I bet that split that chute wide open. And I was kind of hard. I didn't want to look up, but I did. And I looked up and I saw that big, pretty white mushroom up there. And I was thanking my parachute rigger at that time.
You were thinking about your parachute rigger?
Yes, I did, because we were close to him, and he said if you ever bail out, I guarantee if you get up at 500 feet, that parachute will open. And it did. I didn't want to pull that thing, and bang, it was open. And so I was floating down there, and I looked over, and I could see all the anti-aircraft stuff right in the Battery Hill.
Wait a minute, so you were over land when you were?
I was over land, yes. I was going down on Battery Hill and made the turn back, and it continued a little turn, and I was just on, I don't know what it was, on about the west side of Battery Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got out of the plane, I didn't know where it went, but the chute opened and I was drifting there, and I could look right down into the anti-aircraft down there, and I grabbed my upper one, down there in shroud lines in my whole and ends. I almost collapsed the chute, and I started pulling myself away from the Battery Hill there. And then I thought, well, where am I, you know, how close to the water? And I looked down, and I estimated I was 12, 14 feet above the water. And prior to that, I had undone my chest strap and my two seat straps. And as I came back up and knew I was that close to the water, I just stiffened up and slid out of the chute. Went down, hit the water, came up and took a breath, saw the parachute blowing right in on the beach across the little waterway on the target that we had fired on that morning. So I was there and went down under the water, came back up. The waves, I estimated to be about 4 feet high, something like that. And I could take a breath in the trough of the wave and swim through the crest of the wave so that the Japanese would have a hard time seeing me. And that's what I did for a long time there, trying to get away from that part of the island as much as I could.
Did you feel your broken leg during that time?
I stopped, and the first thing I thought was, are there going to be sharks out here? I better release my my shark repellent. And later found out after the war that actually attracted sharks. So that didn't give me any thrill there. But anyhow, then I kept swimming, and I could only use my one leg to kick a little bit with. The other one, it was paralyzed.
You had blown up your Mae West?
I had blown up one side of it. Only one side of it blew up for some reason or other. I thought the whole thing should have blown up. There might have been some damage in it.
So all the years of flying and, swimming in Florida maybe helped you a little
That
bit?
helped me tremendously there because I was not a stranger to the water. I had learned to swim in the Gulf of Mexico and the Manatee River. And I was a lifeguard out at Baden Beach, and I'd taken my Red Cross senior life-saving courses and all and passed those, and had the experience of saving a young fellow's life because of that. And I was a good swimmer. In fact, when we went through training at Pensacola and all, and you had to jump into the swimming pool with your parachute on and all that stuff and your flight gear, I didn't have any problem with that at all. I was a good swimmer, and some of the fellows that weren't as good as swimmers had a little problem.
How far offshore do you think you were when you were in the water?
I didn't think I was 150 yards off, and I've heard that amount mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
I was too close to Battery Hill, I'll tell you.
Did they start shooting at you?
I couldn't tell where they were shooting because some of the planes were still in their dives and were still strafing it, and it was just a big conglomeration of sound at that time.
What happened next?
Well, I was swimming, like I say, trying to get away from the water, and I looked up around to see if I could see Dumbo. I know there was a Dumbo plane out there. I know there was 48 planes on that strike, and when I looked all around the whole area, I couldn't see an airplane anywhere, Dumbo or anything else.
What is a Dumbo?
Dumbo is a PBY plane used for rescuing down pilots, and they use them for other things too. They're like bombing runs at night on submarines and dropping depth charges. But it was a multi-use aircraft, a big wingspan. And even with that wingspan, when he went through that anti-aircraft fire up there, I couldn't even see his wings. I didn't see anything. But this was the second time he came in this time. And I could see him land over there and come skidding across water. He was bouncing from wave to wave and coming towards me. And I'm going to go back and say that I did release my dive marker when I finally looked way out to sea. And all I could see was I could see Dumbo way out there, and I could see all the fighter planes out there joining up. And it was after the time when I thought no one saw me go down. No one was coming back toward the island. It looked like they were going to go up the west side of the island and going back to Polo. But that gave me a kind of a cold chill there because I didn't know what I was going to do after that. My plan was to try to get across the bay and into the crevices in the rocks over there from the cliffs, like the Japanese did, and hide in there until night and swim out into where the picket boats sometimes went around the island and hope that one of those picked me up. But I didn't, everything was just going so fast there that you didn't have time to sit down and think about your predicament too much. You're thinking about how am I going to get out of this situation, and that was my plan to try to swim over there. And I know now I never would have made it because it was too far away. That's longer than what it looked like there. And then I saw the planes and I could see them starting to come. It looked like they were coming towards the island, so I released my dive marker, and that stretched out behind me. And Major Clay, when we got back in the hospital the next day, he came in and saw me and said, "Man, I never saw anybody swim so fast in all my life, and you were swimming there. That dive marker was a mile behind you." He might have been saying that just to get a laugh out of me, but that's the way I thought I was going to. And I kept taking a breath in the trough of the waves and not going across the crest so that no one from land could see me. We were too close to the target for that morning, and I didn't know whether any of the anti-aircraft crew up on top of the mountain could see me or not there. But I kept going under the crest of the wave and taking a breath and keep doing that and trying to get away from the island as much as I could. And then I looked up and I saw the PBY coming in, the Dumbo plane, to make a stab at picking me up. And as he came in, he flew right over the top of Battery Hill. And I'm sitting down here just looking right straight up at him there. And that big old 100-and-some foot wingspan was completely obliterated by the black smoke from the anti-aircraft. I couldn't even see him, but I did hear the engines crank up when he advanced the throttle. He thought he had been hit in the hull, I found out later on. And if he'd been hit in the hull, it would have probably, on coming in, it would have split it open, he would have sunk out there, and it wouldn't have been any good anyhow. But I watched him go out, and I said, well, boy, this scared him off. He's not coming back. And sure enough, he made that and run a big loop around. And I understood that later on from talking to the pilots and all of the squadron and to him that they had called out to take care of some of that fire down there on Battery Hill. And he had, the planes were grouped up and they were just going around in a circle, really strafing Battery Hill. So
Could you see him doing that?
I could see him, yeah, they were all around the whole thing there. And I'd sit there and watch him a little bit as I came up in the trough of the wave. And then I saw him come back, and when he came back, he went over to the side of Battery Hill, and there was no fire from Battery Hill that I could detect at that time. And then I saw him go out and land on the water and come flying in. He almost take off speed. He was coming in so fast. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to approach him, and he come taxiing up to me. And I knew I had to get close enough to get in the blister on that. There's a blister on either side, and to get in that. And I started swimming towards the plane as best I could with just my hands. And as he came taxiing up alongside, the propeller was chopping the wave because the water, because the waves were so big. And I went under the water and came up right at the blister. And as I went by the blister, I saw him throw a line out to me. I don't know if they say it had a ring on it, but there was no ring on the line I had. He needed it 3 times, and I grabbed hold of the line that they threw out there. And when I did, it started weathercocking him. I could tell that it was acting a drag on him there, and he started hitting the throttle and going up, and I was holding on for dear life, and I was bouncing through the water and drinking half the Pacific Ocean out there. And he went out, and I found I couldn't hold on any longer. I had to turn loose. I was getting weaker all the time. And so I saw him make a big loop out and start coming back. And I can't believe he's going to do that. And he started coming back in towards me, and I made up my mind I was going to get in there this time and get a hold of it. And he come taxiing up to me, and by that time the guns were firing in the water from back on Arica Basin where we had bombed that morning. And they had set mortars up, and a few mortars were going in. And he came up and threw the line out again. Nobody in the blister. This I can't understand. Any of the pilots before that, when they were in the water, or when they were, you come to pick them up, they were in the water, they even had some of the crewmen jump out there and help them to get in the plane. But there was nobody even in the blister that I could see. And he came on and threw the line out, and this time I grabbed it again, and when he pulled the cord to it, I went right back under the tail of the plane there, and both propellers were just throwing salt water back there as like a hurricane. And I breathed as long as I could without drowning, and then finally I had to turn loose again. And I thought, boy, this is the last time. I know he can't come in again. And he taxied on out, made another loop around, and started back. And I was watching. I made my mind then I was going to go underwater as the blister came by, go under the water when the propeller came by, and try to get up right at the blister. As he came towards me, I looked out there, and a motor hit right in front of his starboard engine, and a big geyser of water went up, and I heard the engine start coughing, and he was pumping it, and it was spitting and sputtering, and I didn't think he was going to get the engine going again. It's a two-engine plane. And sure enough, the engineer did get the engine revving up and going again, and he came on towards me. And I made up my mind I was going to go under the water and come up in the blister and try to kick with my good foot and jump as high as I could and reach the edge of the blister and pull myself in. And nobody in the blister that I could see. But then as he came by, and I went under the prop, went up and kicked with my right foot and jumped up as high as I could jump. I was about 12 inches or something like that short of being able to grab the rim of the blister. But just as I was ripping up like that, two big little hands came down and grabbed me by the wrist and threw me right into the bilge of the plane. I landed in there with a big flop, and our flight surgeon was there along for a ride. This was kind of just a joyride or experience ride with him because they'd been going out doing this and not having any problems, and this was a real surprise when he got into a situation like this. And he was going to give me some blood plasma, but he was nervous. He was extremely nervous. And the plane was bouncing up so high that he dropped the...
right away.
Okay.
dropped the blood plasma around in the bilge. And then two or three of the fellows in the plane picked me up and put me in a bunk on the side of the plane, and I heard him hit the throttle, and we went bouncing across the water, and shortly we were at Peleliu, and they had an ambulance out there, and they hoisted me out of the blister and put me in the ambulance, and took me over to Base 20 Hospital, and I spent the most miserable night I've ever spent in my life in there, throwing up salt water, sick, just tremendous pain from the burns, the gasoline burn, and all the rest of the stuff there.
Did they
Broken leg.
Did they do anything for your leg? Were they able to do anything for it?
They treated my burns with a little, I think it was a little flip gun, and it had a lot of them in sulfurin, as I recall. And the doctor would come by and spray all the burns every morning and afternoon, and I mean on a regular schedule on that. And he had it all bandaged up. And the shrapnel wound to my thigh where I could put my fist in it when I was out in the water there. I checked it while I was out in the water to be sure if I was really bleeding hard, but it wasn't bleeding that much, so I figured the femoral artery wasn't touched, and it was just a superficial artery out there that was bleeding, but I lost a lot of blood. But that night in the hospital, I threw up salt water all night long, and I was in tremendous pain from the burns. And I don't know, I couldn't tell which one hurt the worst. I don't think the rest of it did. They didn't even know I had the fractured fibula. And that's the only reason I'm here today, because my foot was hung under something under the instrument panel in the cockpit when it had whipped around, and I was looked like I was tied in there for good until that fibula broke and it released my foot like that. If you can recall the fibula in the back of your leg, when it breaks, it'll release your foot where you can stick it straight out.
Let me ask you a question, coming back to that part of the mission. When you went into the dive at 8,500 feet.
No, I went into the dive, I already know.
Oh, at 20,000.
At 8,500 feet is when I want to make a final check on my needle ball and airspeed to see where we're going there.
And you got hit sometime after that.
I got hit just about the time I looked down in there, right after that. Mm-hmm.
And what do you have an idea of what your altitude was when you actually got free from the plane?
Only thing I can tell you is Alan Carmita, the second section leader, followed me down, and he told me I got hit about 8,500 feet, and I got out of the parachute, I forget what he said, 1,500 feet, something like that.
1,500 feet? Mm-hmm. And you
really
pulled the ripcord right away?
Right away. The minute I saw I was free, I reached down and pulled it. And of course the parachute harness was so loose there, that's what caused a lot of my trouble. I've got a herniated hamstring muscle in the back of my right leg that they can't do anything with. Mm-hmm. And that gave me trouble. I used to hate to have to go out swimming. I think would cramp up on me there. Cramps are something that kills a lot of swimmers. Mm-hmm. And being a lifeguard there, I didn't want to get in that situation. But
you're in the hospital now and being taken care of.
Being taken care of, yeah.
What happens next?
Well, I was in there about, I guess 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks maybe. And they had to wait for the burns to heal up before they could do anything else. And then they were waiting for the proud flesh to grow up in the shrapnel wound. And he would come along every morning with the gauze and scoop that out and get the pus and everything out of it. And then put some, whatever he put in it there, and bandage it back up again. The burns, he had a little flip gun that looked like to me, and he had the lanolin sulfur, and he'd come around and just squirt that all over my burns. And that did a good job there. I mean, they healed up nice. I don't have any problem with that, because all down my left, outside of my left knee and all there was third-degree burn. They hurt. I mean, burns. A burn is a hurting thing. And
And they fixed your broken fibula?
No, they didn't know it was broken.
Okay.
Pause for a second.
Yep.
We're almost done.